So if you're not watching this on the actual live stream day itself, I'm going to be posting this segment of the live stream on my actual birthday. The 15th of June 2022 is my 30th birthday. And I've also been talking about Doctor Who online for about 12 years now at this point. I started with Series 5 when Victory of the Daleks came out. So yeah, around 12 years ago. And the actual way that I got into Doctor Who is slightly unconventional because, yes, I did get into it with the 2005 revival, but Rose was not the first story that I saw. So in 2005, I was 12 years old. Rose came out at the end of March, beginning of April, and the second episode was The End of the World. And in the lead up to Rose being broadcast in 2005, I saw the occasional poster. Yeah, I saw this banner around Hull, which is near where I lived back in 2005. I saw this banner everywhere, but I had no idea who these two were, what that police box was. I genuinely had like no frame of reference for Doctor Who pre-2005, with the exception of a story that I happened to catch the ending of an episode of when I was maybe like 5 or 6 years old. I can't exactly remember how old I was or exactly like what channel it was on, but I remember I was staying at my grandmother's house. So I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I walked past my grandmother's TV while it was on, while Doctor Who was on, although I didn't know it at the time. And this clip from the ending of what I now know to be the ending of part 1 of the Sontaran experiment happens, and this cliffhanger absolutely shit me up. And I remember running out of the room in terror at this weird potato-faced man who'd just taken the helmet off. I don't know what channel it was on. I don't know if this was like a schedule, like a marathon repeat or whatever, if they just decided in the late 1990s to just play the Sontaran experiment on TV. I still to this day have absolutely no idea, but that was, to my knowledge, my first ever exposure to Doctor Who. I also think that it was around maybe 2002, 2003 during a bank holiday weekend where they played the Peter Cushing movies, Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD, which is now getting a resurgence at the BFI this month as well, or like one of the Gordon Fleming Peter Cushing films are, because they're being released in 4K on Steelbook and in special collectors Blu-rays and stuff. And I remember the scene where Roberta Tovey is going through the cottage and she opens the curtains and the Dalek is there. That was the very first time that I ever saw a Dalek. I didn't see anything else in pop culture. I just completely avoided all of that. That passed me by, apparently. And then in 2005, my parents recorded Rose on VHS. And then when The End of the World was going to broadcast that following Saturday, they sat us down as a family and said, we recorded this episode of this new drama. We think they might want to watch it. And I remember going into that room, family time. I'd rather just be playing Smash Brothers upstairs or whatever. I don't really care. But we go into that room. They pop the VHS in because they recorded Rose the week before. And I remember being so utterly captivated when Rose is going downstairs into the basement and the Autons start attacking her. But it was really, oddly enough, the scene where Mickey is tempted in by the burping bin and the bin is like shaking and his hands stick to it. That, if I was able to go behind the sofa, that would have been the moment for me when the bin starts moving. Oddly enough, I found that incredibly terrifying and really compelling. And I found Christopher Eccleston so funny. I absolutely adored the interactions between him and Billie Piper. And then once the credits roll on Rose, they take the VHS out, and then like 10 minutes later, they play The End of the World live on BBC One, and then we watch that together as a family. And I loved that as well. I absolutely adored everything I saw about it. And I knew that that would be my brand new obsession. And then everybody is leaving the room. My mum and dad and my brother, they're leaving the room as the credits start rolling for The End of the World. And what happened on BBC One was that the credits were pushed to one side for a moment, and an announcer said, if you want to know about how this episode was made, hop over to BBC Three now, and you can get a behind-the-scenes look with Doctor Who Confidential. And then I instantly went to BBC Three, and I watched Doctor Who Confidential, and I saw the behind the scenes, all the makeup and the effects and all the clips from the classic series, and that evening my horizons were incredibly broadened, not only just in terms of the world of Doctor Who, but knowing that actual people make this, and their jobs, and people could do the special effects, and they were being directed, and there were assistant directors, and there was this whole ecosystem. And then I realised that's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And TXT underscore master says, no, you missed the confidential for Rose. Yeah, I did not see the confidential for Rose. I still, to this day, have not seen the full 45-minute version of confidential for Rose. I've seen the confidential cut down that was on DVD, but to this day, I've still not watched the full 45-minute, or half-hour version, however long confidential episodes were. And I've got so many memories now of Series 1 back in 2005, of sometimes my family would watch the show with me, sometimes they'd just dip in and out. I remember my brother watching The Unquiet Dead with me, and he seemed to really enjoy that. And I also remember, it was around that time I had a paper round as well, and every week I'd be delivering, there's only one house in my village that had the Radio Times, but there was a big gap between one half of the village, and then I'd have to walk across this field, and then there was the Radio Times house, and I'd use that field to read through the Doctor Who stuff in that issue of the Radio Times, and there were the Daleks on the Radio Times as well, and I kind of maybe recognised them, but I knew that them returning was a really big deal. And then Dalek broadcast, the family watched it. I also remember for The Empty Child, my Uncle Brian, who's now no longer with us unfortunately, he came to visit from Canada. And we ordered takeaway pizza that evening, and the story was so scary, and my family knew that I was really, really scared, that they were joking around me having the cheese pizza would give me nightmares. I don't know if it was the cheese from the pizza, but I absolutely had nightmares that night from The Empty Child. So my 13th birthday was the 15th of June 2005, and The Parting of the Ways was broadcast on the 18th of June, that weekend. So I knew that I had to make a big thing about it, because this was my brand new favourite thing. All of my friends at school were really into it as well. So for my birthday that weekend, my 13th birthday, I invited 4 or 5 of my friends around. We got popcorn, we made snacks, and we watched The Parting of the Ways. And my brother got in on it as well, watching the story. And we watched My Doctor Regenerate. We watched Christopher Eccleston. And I remember just the whiplash in the room as we were taken on the emotional journey of Parting of the Ways. That scene when the Doctor and Rose are stripping those wires and everything on the top floor of Satellite 5. And then he has that moment of epiphany, and he's like, oh, if I can use the TARDIS to cross my own timeline. I remember we were getting so hyped in that room, we were thinking, oh god, what's he going to do? Multiple Ninth Doctors, what's going to happen here? And then he steps out of the TARDIS once Billie Piper's in there, and then he sends her away. And the room was silent, and we watched that hologram scene, and I don't know if I was crying at the end of that scene. I might have been. I don't remember. And then, yeah, he fights his final battle and he regenerates into David Tennant, which I knew was happening because the TV magazine that our family got had a little thing, and I had a column and a poorly photoshopped transition from Eccleston's face to David Tennant's face, so I kind of knew that was happening, but I didn't really know the logistics of it. But I do remember that gap between The Parting of the Ways and the Christmas Invasion, that was me diving into the classic series of Doctor Who. This was in the very early days of Amazon as well. I think on Amazon I ordered a couple of DVDs. I remember ordering Remembrance of the Daleks and also ordering what I thought was the first Dalek story with William Hartnell. But then it turned out that no, it was a double DVD collector's edition with the Peter Cushing films. So I wouldn't watch those William Hartnell stories until several years later. But it was also during that time in the mid-2000s when the BBC Classic Doctor Who website was my Bible. I'll try and bring a page up now. Depressingly, the Classic Doctor Who guide is no longer there, but you can access it through the Wayback Machine. But who else gets massively nostalgic looking at these pages? It can't just be me, right? But if you go onto the page now, the remnants are still here where you could go and find out more about the classic stories. But if you go into any of the details, it takes you to a now outdated version of the Doctor Who BBC website. But you can use the Wayback Machine. 1 second, copy link address. Wayback Machine. Fawlty TARDIS, I spent my youth on these pages. Yeah, they were great. And it was a really terrible BBC video player, but that was where I watched clips from the 10th Planet. That was where I watched loads of black and white clips and Tom Baker clips and stuff. That was how I found so much of this classic Doctor Who world. What I loved about the journey of being a brand new Doctor Who fan in 2005 was that when the show ended in mid-June 2005, and you had this gap between June and Christmas, Like, if you really liked the show, you didn't have to wait. You could go back and explore this literally nearly 3 decades worth of archived material, which was incredibly well curated and maintained from the classic BBC Doctor Who page. Like, this was incredibly fun and nostalgic. Now, depressingly, these pages went offline in 2020, so you have to use the Wayback Machine to find them. But even now, when I'm reviewing a brand new Doctor Who story, or when I'm reviewing a classic Doctor Who story, I should say, I go to these pages to find the great moments of dialogue, the double entendres, the continuity, the goofs, and some of the analysis from Doctor Who, the television companion, and the discontinuity guide. Like, Doctor Who did not end with the parting of the ways. Like, you could go back and find decades of stuff. It was incredible. But who remembers this book? Doctor Who The Legend Continues from 2005, written by Justin Richards. Because this book, I got it for Christmas 2005, and this was my Bible, basically. I even remember finding this book in November 2005 in a hiding spot in my parents' bedroom. And then I just had to pretend that I didn't know that this was going to be my birthday present that year. But when I would go to school, my parents would leave like half an hour before me and my brother. Then we'd get the school bus afterwards. But I remember getting ready extra early most mornings. And then once my parents left to go to work, I would sneak into their bedroom, find the hiding place, and go through the book. And then I'd basically almost read it cover to cover by the time I received it on Christmas Day, and I had to act surprised. I also got the TARDIS box, the 2005 Series 1 DVD, which is like incredibly brittle now. So it completely fell apart. But that was, this was my Bible, this Justin Richards book. I don't have it now, unfortunately, but it was such a great, massive tome of classic Doctor Who. That and the classic Doctor Who website was how I got all of my initial knowledge for it, and I was obsessed with it as well. I got the Aliens and Monsters book as well, with the Dalek on the cover, and every year we'd get the expanded version of it, the ones that came out every single season. Aliens and Enemies, Myths and Monsters, all of that stuff. I got the Ninth Doctor BBC books. I got a couple of them. I got Winner Takes All. I think that was the first one. And I also got the Slitheen one, The Monsters Inside. But I never read The Monsters Inside, never finished it. And I also got some classic stories on DVD from Woolworths before that passed away. DXE_Master, I wasn't even born when it was closed. Please tell me about Woolworths. Yes, Woolworths, I bought Earthshock and Revelation of the Daleks as like a double feature. Yeah, I bought that as well. My Revelation of the Daleks DVD was glitched, so it took me a while to be able to finish watching the story. And yeah, I'll just make my way through the 2 Entertain DVDs as well. And I never completely made my way through them, but I remember it was like a Christmas tradition. Every Christmas, my parents would get me the latest box set and maybe another Doctor Who DVD. It was 2007 or 2008, they got me the Invasion on DVD as well, where I had the animated reconstructions. And using the old Doctor Who website, I would go through the webcast. I'd watch Scream of the Shauka. I'd watch the original, like the redone version of Shadow with Paul McGann and Lalla Ward. Ketcast Reviews, do you remember what the first classic Doctor Who story you watched was? With full memory in its entirety, because the Sontaran Experiment was the first time I ever saw clips from it, was probably Remembrance of the Daleks, because that was, I think, the first DVD I got. And I remember for years as well, when I'd made my way through the 2 Entertain, like Genesis of the Daleks, The Hand of Fear, all those great DVDs. I got the Invasion, the Beginnings box set, the New Beginnings box set. I got a portable DVD player because I did like a short film, like an acting job years ago. I got like £50 for it. And I used that £50 to buy a portable DVD player. And my brother had a PlayStation 2 in his room. It was my PlayStation 2, but I'd go into his room to play the PlayStation 2. I'd be playing that, I'd be playing Grand Theft Auto. And on the bed that I was laid on was a portable DVD player where I'd be watching classic Doctor Who. And that was how I got into the classic series. And then the rest is history, really. So that was my classic Doctor Who story, really. That was how I got into the show. And it was because we had like the classic Doctor Who website and the books like from Justin Richards and the DVDs that I even knew. I like the Doctor Who Confidentials as well, where they would interview classic doctors and they play classic clips. I've played it on stream before. That brilliant montage that they had for the Daleks set to O Fortuna was incredible. so good. They have Peter Cushing clips. You can watch many of these full classic confidentials on YouTube or on other video hosting sites. But yeah, like that was my exposure to classic series Daleks. And I think because of these montages and stuff and these interviews, I wanted to watch Remembrance of the Daleks. Like I started with Dalek Stories because, you know, the Daleks were the big villains in 2005. Their DVDs were readily available. Who remembers? 1 second. I just remembered this. On the To Entertain DVDs, they had the montage for the 40th anniversary of Doctor Who. Like, this would probably be copyright claimed, but such a good version of the theme. The clips are limited because it's just what they had on DVD at the time. But yeah. So good. That tribute goes so hard. And also, it's hard to find now because it will be copyright nuked into oblivion if you try and re-upload it. But they had on the BBC Doctor Who website those musical montages of Doctor Who throughout the decades, from the 60s, 70s and the 80s. And they had like 30 or 40 seconds per story with a pop song from roughly around the era. And yeah, that was how I knew about all of that stuff from the classic series on those terrible Doctor Who video players. TV Caribbean Doctor Who's Confidential Series 4, The Doctor and Rose's Reunion, was set to Time After Time by Cyndi Lauper, and it's awesome, lol. Oh yeah, they had some really good montages in Doctor Who Confidential. There's a genuinely great one on the End of Time Part 2, when they're talking about that the regeneration is actually a death. And they have a montage to Madonna's This Used to Be My Playground, and it's like genuinely heartfelt tribute. It's really good. But yeah, you go back to 2005 and you only had the BBC Doctor Who website, and now you can just go on BritBox and watch the entire history. You can just go on Wikipedia. You can just go on TARDIS Wiki. You don't have to hunt quite as hard. But then again, people in 2005 didn't have to hunt quite as hard as the people who became fans in the wilderness years. We had it relatively easy compared to fans who were there when the show was cancelled. So yeah, that's my Doctor Who story, really. That happened 17 years ago. Blimey.